We online. We online. All right. Finals. Creative skills. Intentional change theory starts in a few seconds. In a few seconds. Show your work. All right. Here we go. I gave you the review already. There's no excuses. Let's see who's been doing their homework. Okay. Okay. Perfect. All right. You ready? Mama. Intentional change theory. Achieving manageable, meaningful change. Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Benjamin Franklin. How many times have you tried to change something about yourself, only to find yourself slipping back into old habits? Change is never easy, whether you're trying to change a behavior, an attitude, or your current circumstances. The process is likely to be more start, stop, start than the smooth transition you like it to be. As willpower flags and as other priorities vie for your attention. Change is especially tough if you haven't wholly bought into it. For example, if you're trying to make a change that deep down you don't want to make, or if you're making a change that was designed for someone else and that doesn't fully align with your aspirations. This is why it's helpful to create a personalized change plan. In this article, we'll look at intentional change theory, a framework that you can use to create a change plan that is tailored to you with your own unique strengths, weaknesses, learning styles, dreams, and support networks. Note, this article focuses on career related change. However, you can apply intentional change theory to personal goals too. For example, you can use it for a diet or fitness plan, for home interest or study, or for changing a habit or belief that is holding you back. About the tool, Richard Boyatzis, a professor, a professor case at Western Reserve University, developed intentional change theory (ICT) as part of his work on individual and organizational change. He published it in 2006 in the Journal of Management Development, or JMD. The theory outlines 5 common sense steps that you need to follow if you want to make a lasting change within yourself. These 5 steps are: number one, discover your ideal self. Number two, discover your real self. Number three, create your learning agenda. Number four, experiment with and practice new habits. Number five, get support. From Boyatzis RE 2006, an overview of intentional change from a completely new perspective. Journal of Management Development, Volume 25, Number 7, reproduced with permission of Emerald Group Publishing Limited. These steps guide you through the process of mapping out your plans, putting them into practice, and making them part of your life. Applying intentional change theory, let's look at each step in detail and explore how to follow each one through. Number one, discover yourself. There's often a gap between who we are and who we ultimately want to be. So, the first step in making an intentional change is to define your ideal self. Start by forming a clear sense of what you'd like to achieve. Think about your hopes and aspirations and clarify them into short and long term goals. Pay attention to what excites you during this process. Discard goals that you don't feel enthusiastic about and keep exploring until you find ones that you truly like to achieve. Remember that they might be drastically different from what you're doing now. Write down all of your dreams, however far fetched they seem. At this stage of the process, it's helpful to see all of your hopes and aspirations, even if you later decide that some of them are not immediately achievable. Next, think about what kind of person you'd like to be. Be specific. Would you like to have more empathy, or rather work with more energy, have more patience? Visualize the person that you like to become in detail and write this down. Extra credit tip number one. One way to motivate yourself during your period of change is to create a treasure map of your goals. Alternatively, you may find that a personal mission and vision statement inspires you. Tip number two. Our Life Plan Workbook gives you a comprehensive framework for exploring and clarifying your life goals. Number two, discover your real self. Your next step is to define your real self, the person you are right now. This can be a challenging step because many of us have trouble seeing our strengths and weaknesses clearly. However, it's essential to uncover both the good and the bad. You'll struggle to reach your goal if you are not clear about your starting point. Start by defining your own strengths and weaknesses. Use tools such as the Strength Finder, personal SWOT analysis, and Myers Briggs to uncover more about your real self. Alternatively, start with a simple list. What you like most about yourself. What needs to change. Explore your current attitudes, assumptions, behaviors, and habits. Also, ask for feedback from family, friends, colleagues, and your boss, explaining that you like their opinion on your strengths and weaknesses so that you can work on these. Then use the feedback matrix to explore this feedback in more detail. Number three, create your learning agenda. Hello. Now that you've defined who you are and who you like to be, you can create a learning agenda to align reality with the vision. Your learning agenda, also known as a personal development plan, will also help you stay on track. First, define what you need to do to move from your current self to your ideal self. Who can help you along this path? What resources do you need? Brainstorm the ways that you can access the information or training you need. Then identify your learning style. When you know this, you can learn more effectively, both on your own and in a group. For example, if you know that you prefer to learn by reflecting on information, schedule time to do this after a class or at the end of a study session or workout, as I do. Find a mentor or coach who can help you become your ideal self. This person might be a work colleague, friend, business associate, or professional coach. Extra credit. Tip number one. It's essential to do a reality check at this stage. There may be some changes that just aren't possible right now. Note these down on a bigger picture list of plans. You can work on these when your circumstances or resources change. Number two, you may be held back by a lack of time or by conflicting demands. You can deal with this by focusing on a few changes at a time. Also, and where appropriate, embed your learning in your working life to help avoid frustration. Our article on finding time for professional development outlines ways that you can fit learning into your schedule. Number four, experiment and practice new habits. Once you're heading in the right direction, it's time to practice. This will help you turn the changes you've made into new habits. Whether you're adopting a new skill, starting a micro business, or changing an attitude or belief, do something, however small, every day that reinforces the change that you've made. This step is also about experimenting, that is, finding stimulating ways to learn. Good morning. And then testing your new knowledge, skills, or attitudes. Tip: quick wins are an important source of motivation and self confidence. For example, imagine that you're trying to be more patient with others. Find a small way to build your patience with your team every day. Number five, get support. None of us gets far alone. Friends, family, colleagues, and our community can encourage us and give us support that propels us through challenging times. As you're going through the intentional change process, draw on the support of the people around you. Tell people you trust about what you want to do and why you want to do it. Share your learning agenda and ask for their support as you move forward. Extra credit, another tip. Remember, you're not the only person who's trying to change him or herself positively. Build good work relationships by helping your colleagues with their own development. This way, you can give one another support. Key points. Richard Boyatzis, a professor at Case Western Reserve University, created the Intentional Change Theory, ICT, and published it in the Journal of Management Development in 2006. The model recommends that you use the following five steps to make a lasting change. Discover your ideal self, number one. Number two, discover your real self, number two. Number three, create your learning agenda. Number four, experiment with and practice new habits. Number five, get support. You can use the framework to customize your change process to suit your own life, learning style, and environment. However, change will only happen if you build small changes into your life. Practice them to build new habits and ask for support when you need it. Moving on to part two, communication skills, Moravian's communication model. Everybody get ready? Let's rock and roll. Moravian's communication model, learning to communicate clearly. Use this model to communicate clearly. Have you ever opened an email from a colleague and misinterpreted the words on the screen? Perhaps you felt the message was critical of you or your work, when in fact that wasn't what the writer intended at all. Or maybe you've had the experience of speaking with a client over the phone and knowing just from their tone of voice that you're not going to get the sale this time. Communication is made up of more than just the words we use. Our tone of voice, facial expression, and body language all play a major role in how we're understood. And if we're communicating in a situation where we can't use all of these elements to enhance our messages, we need to be very careful. You might well have heard the popular statistic that only 7% of any message is conveyed through the words you choose. The other 93% is allegedly found in subtle clues like your tone of voice and body language. This claim stems from a study done by psychologist Albert Morabian in the late 60s. But beware, it's all too often misquoted. In this article, we'll explain what Morabian's communication model really says and look at how you can use its findings in your everyday life. Morabian's communication model. In 1967, in a study titled Interference of Attitude from Nonverbal Communication in Two Channels, psychologist Albert Morabian revealed groundbreaking new data relating to the relative importance of verbal and nonverbal messages. Chapter 1. In this original study, Morabian considered different combinations of positive, neutral, and negative attitude, as expressed through both facial expressions and tone of voice. For example, he used the word maybe to test how well people could judge the feelings of others. As a word, maybe was considered to be neutral in meaning. It was then read to participants using a positive, neutral, and negative tone of voice, and listeners had to judge the attitude of the speaker based primarily on their tone of voice. The study allowed Morabian to consider the relative importance of three elements in our communication: words, tone of voice, and facial expression. He wanted to discover which carried the most weight in order to know whether we listen more to what people say or how they're saying it. When this research was complete, Morabian concluded that in situations dealing with feelings and attitudes, facial expression was the most significant element, followed by tone of voice. The actual words spoken were least important for communication. As part of this work, Morabian also studied the effects of inconsistent communication, where a particular facial expression or tone of voice was clearly at odds with the words being used. So, when there is incongruence in this way, what will people actually pay most attention to? Do they respond to words, tone of voice, or body language? Morabian once again deduced that people will respond to body language and voice tone over verbal or words choice. For instance, if the words go away are said with a positive vocal tone, even though the meaning itself is negative, the listener will likely interpret the experience as positive. Using his overall findings, Morabian created this formula for the relative importance of the different components of communication about emotions or attitudes. Total emotion slash attitude communicated equals 7% verbal plus 38% vocal and 55% facial. Since its publication, Moravian's study has become very well known both in communication literature and the popular media. but it's all too often misquoted and misinterpreted. The misinterpretation occurs when people assume that his formula applies to all communication situations. But Moravian clarifies on his website that his study dealt only with communications involving feelings and attitudes. He states that unless a communicator is talking about their feelings or attitudes, these equations are not applicable. How to use Moravian's communication model. So, how can you correctly apply Moravian's communication model to your life? Knowing about the model can be useful in email communications when you're relaying sensitive or emotional information. In these situations, without input from facial expression or tone of voice, you need to take extra care choosing the words in your message. Without nonverbal clues, words and meaning can easily be misinterpreted. This is why emotions are so useful when you're writing an informal email. This could be a business plan, business proposal, demonstration, etc. Use your own intuition and be creative. Okay? It's also useful for telephone conversations. Remember that without facial cues, your tone of voice and word choice will have more impact. Be aware of your tone when you're speaking and choose your words carefully. Make sure that they match your actual intention and message. This is, of course, particularly important when you're speaking about a highly sensitive or emotional. You can use the model to guide your actions. For instance, imagine that you need to give some negative feedback to a colleague. Because body language and facial expression are so important when expressing your feelings about his or her performance, you know that relaying this feedback in person rather than via email or over the phone will increase the odds of no undue offense being taken. You'll be able to get across your true intentions and message more clearly if you can use both facial expression and vocal tone. You'll also be able to see your colleague's reaction immediately and, if necessary, adjust your message appropriately. Morabian's model can also be applied in meetings. Imagine you're giving a presentation about a project you care about deeply. As you speak about your commitment to the project, your body language and facial expressions are going to relay your genuine emotions far more than the words you're speaking. And if your audience needs convincing, the way that you deliver your message will be critical. This model can also be useful in interviews. When you're speaking with a particular candidate, pay close attention to how they answer emotionally charged questions. For instance, what excites you about the possibility of working for this company would be a good one. Their facial expression and vocal tone should let you know if they truly if they're truly interested in becoming part of the team or if they're just after a paycheck. Key points. Moravian's communication model suggests that people tend to respond to body language and tone of voice over word choice, particularly if the message being communicated is emotionally charged or sensitive. This model can help us to make sure that when we communicate, we make that message clear not only in our choice of words, but also in our facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. By doing this, we can minimize miscommunication and misunderstanding. That's all the time that we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. This is going on the podcast in about 2 minutes. God bless.